name is Heidi Crnkovic, and I am the 4-H Ag Agent for Otero County. Later on in this video, you'll meet Sid Gordon, who is our Ag Agent for Otero County. Both of us are Extension Service professionals who are employed by New Mexico State University, with our primary responsibility being in Otero County, New Mexico. Now, the project that we're going to discuss today applies to both 4-H members as well as adults, perhaps former 4-H members, who are interested in selecting a young horse to go ahead and either train or just to ride and enjoy. Now, as it pertains specifically to 4-H, I would like to discuss the Futurity and Versatility. Now, this is a competition that is specifically designed for senior-aged, more experienced 4-H members. Typically, it's recommended that they've completed at least a level 3 of the horsemanship project. And I personally would recommend that these individuals work with either a parent or perhaps a trainer or a more experienced horse person to guide them throughout the process. Now, keep in mind that these horses will be selected by you. They must be owned by you or an immediate family member in their yearling year or perhaps in their 2-year-old year. These horses will need to be registered with the state 4-H office by the deadline of May 1st to be eligible for the Futurity. Now, these horses have never been ridden by anybody else, and the 4-H member will be responsible for all of their training and riding, even if they are receiving guidance from another more experienced horseman. Now, as you continue through this process, the end result for the year will be to show your horse or exhibit it at the New Mexico State Fair in the fall. The 2-year-old Futurity specifically has 3 Western pleasure classes that you will be able to show your horse in. If your horse is not ready to be ridden yet, there is also a showmanship option. Now, once you have competed in the 2-year-old Futurity, your horse will be eligible to move on to the 3-year-old Versatility contest the next year. So as you continue training and riding this horse, you can take them up to the 3-year-old level, where you will be showing again at the New Mexico State Fair in trail, horsemanship, and Western pleasure. This is a specifically rewarding project that can teach you a lot and take your horsemanship experience full circle. It's also very valuable as a learning tool for older members in gaining in that responsibility, and also perhaps you may be raising your horse to sell later on. So we hope that as Sid Gordon presents you more information with regards to prospect selection, that this will be a valuable tool as you begin the process of selecting a young horse to ride and enjoy. Thank you.
So today we're going to talk about horse selection. This is a young horse I bought a year ago as a yearling. He's 2 years old now. I bought him off the CS Ranch in northern New Mexico. He is a grandson of Rooster. He's out of some of their good mare lines. He goes back to Doc Bar 5 times in his pedigree. The only reason I bring that up is I want to give you a little history, and we're going to talk later about selection and things we look for in selection and things that add value to a horse. Papers are something you need to consider heavily. It helps give the genetic predisposition of a horse to do certain activities. It's also things that potential buyers look for in what they want. And certain buyers want horses with some pedigree. This is a pretty nice little 2-year-old. I'm very, very pleased with him. He was nice as a baby, and he's grown out to make a nice 2-year-old. I will start him under saddle soon. He's been handled and he's been ground worked and been saddled. And when he gets a little more maturity on him, I will get him going. So with that, we'll go into some other talking points. Okay, so a few of our talking points that we're going to talk about today on these, any horse you're buying, young or old, you need to think about soundness. So soundness is a horse sound? Does he travel right? Does he have any blemishes? How are his hooves? Is there any scarring or bumps on the leg? Is there anything wrong with any of the joints? Is there any swelling? Is there an overbite? Are his eyes good and bright and clear? No cloudiness? Any appearance that there's never been any damage to it? These are all things we need to look at and consider. Don't buy problems. So it's pretty easy to visually go around, look at the colt, look at their legs, look at their hooves, see is there any cracks, is there any blemishes. We want to look at all that. We want to make sure he doesn't have a big overbite. His teeth meet nice and even as this colt does. And then, then you need to decide decide, well, so he looks pretty clean. I think he looks pretty sound. The next thing I'd like to go to is the conformation. So, you've got to look at a horse from the ground up. That side view is going to tell you a whole lot about the balance of the horse and how well they flow together. This young horse, when he was a yearling, as he does now, very nicely balanced. He has a nice short top. He has a long underline. He's got a great shoulder. He's got an adequate hip. Very clean neck. His throat latch is clean. His neck comes out high. He just profiles really nice. And that's what I want to see. But then I've also got to make sure that those legs, which is the foundation of all horses, are put underneath them correctly. They're nice and straight. So when you look at this colt from the front, you can tell legs come out, knees come out nice and straight. They're set on there nice in front, nice and straight, facing forward to the front. He's got a long forearm. He's got short cannons. Nice heart guard, doing plenty of V muscle. Just a really nice colt up front. When I turn him around, I want to see how his hind legs set underneath him. So he's nice and straight. He's not cow-hocked. He's got some nice set to his hocks, so he can do some things later down the road when it comes to performance. He's got a good stifle. He's got a good gasket. Again, nice short cannons. His fetlocks are clean. He just really stands up nice, and he tracks nice. So that's the other thing. When I picked up this colt, I wanted to see him travel. So we turned him loose in the round pen, and I moved him. Moved in both directions, walk, jog, and low. I want to see that movement. Good. I want to see that movement to see how they're going to track. And I also want to see if there's any bobble or any limping or any gimpiness. So I looked the colt over. I like his soundness. I like his conformation. I like his balance. Next thing I looked at was attitude. So when you're buying a young horse, especially a yearling or a weanling, they may or may not have had much done to them. They may not be halter broke or whatnot, but you want to make sure that colt has the presence to accept some human companionship around them. That doesn't mean they have to come up and get in your pocket, but you want to make sure that they're not just real goofy or bouncing off the walls when you go to get them. And this colt wasn't. He came up in a corral. He'd been turned out on pasture. He hadn't been halter broke yet, but perfectly fine with human beings being around him. He'd been messed with and handled enough that it wasn't an issue. Then, by the time I picked him up, he'd already been halter broke, he'd messed with his feet, and he'd had his shots, and that's a big deal. I like it. I want to see a colt that's going to be able to link up with me and have some predisposition to want to learn. I don't want him worried about me. I want him to be my friend. So, I look at that attitude. I watch how they work, and I watch how they respond to the pressure of human presence around them. And this colt was fine, and of course he's made just a really nice little colt. He's 2 now, and we've got big plans for him. He's been under saddle. Of course, he hasn't been started yet. I want to wait till he gets a little bigger and a little more mature, and I'll start it. But a lot of youth that are picking a colt for the 2-year-old Futurity project will need to have a colt this age to start. And that's fine for a young rider who's much lighter than I am, probably. This is a good time to start. Take your time with him, get him going good, and start getting those handles on him, because it's touches. It's touches that make those horses nice. Riding them, messing with them, and handling them. Next thing I'd like to touch on a little bit is you've got to keep in mind, I always go back to the resale value of a horse. We talked in the introduction about papers. This horse is registered. Yes, there's lots of good grade horses out there. I won't argue that. The problem is today, it costs to feed a horse. It costs just as much to feed a quality horse as it does one that doesn't have near the resale value. So keep all those things in mind when you buy a horse, even though you may want to own them forever. Keep those resale talking points in mind. So things like, do they have papers? Do they have the conformation? The sex of the horse. You can buy some really nice fillies today because they don't have the resale value as a gelding. I'm not saying they're better or worse. That's just a market fact right now. So keep that in mind. Do I want to get a gelding? Do I want to get a filly? Color. A lot of people get hung up on color. So, you know, I'm not a color guy. I'm really strict about conservation and what kind of horse they're going to make. I'm super pleased with this young horse. So let's be honest, if he was a roan or a buckskin or maybe a palomino, to some people he would have more value. He wouldn't, to me, that's not the only thing I use as criteria when I select a horse. I look at resale value. So as nice and good a scamper, a bay horse that he is, yep, if he had a little color, he'd probably be worth more to somebody else. So we talked about those things. We talked about confirmation, how the horse moves, how he acts, how he responds, what's his disposition like, what's his health history. So I'm a big stickler. I vaccinate all my horses annually, and I worm them about 3 times during the year. I don't overworm. I use after frost and a few other key dates to worm, but I think you can worm too frequently and build resistance to parasite issues with the products you're using. You need to rotate your active ingredient when you worm. When you go to purchase one, has this horse ever been vaccinated? Has he ever been wormed? You need to know those things. It helps the value of that horse when you bring him home. Otherwise, you're going to have to go purchase all those things. So we've gone over health history. Has the horse ever been sick? Did he ever have distemper? Did she ever have distemper? Has he had any kind of sickness? Has he had any blood tests for equine genetic diseases that are passed on? Are those tests negative? Things like that all go into what helps the value of the horse. So I'm here to tell you, you can pick any horse you want, and that is a personal decision, and it should be. But if you're going to do anything with your horses, keep in mind that there may come a time when I want to sell them. And if I want to sell them, do others in the market today look at that individual the same way I do? So you can take these tips and do with them what you want. I would keep all of them in mind when I'm going to make a major purchase. Horses are a big responsibility and they're a major purchase. Take your responsibility seriously and enjoy your purchase and enjoy spending time with your horse. Okay, so we went over several things and we talked about a purchase. We're going to kind of wrap this up, but as I mentioned before, I always like to see the horse travel. So lots of times young horses, even if they're halter broke, they don't lead out real well, and I want to see a horse move. I want to see him travel out, and I want to see him travel out at different gaits. So I'm going to take this young horse, I'm going to move him off. Come on, Charlie. We want to see him now pick up those feet nice and clean, step nicely, moves around. We go the other way. Go the other way, Charlie. Like the way he reaches up underneath himself, he's tracking nice and straight. I'm going to tip him on up into a lope so I can see how he moves at the lope. Come on. Okay. Go the other way. Really tracks out nice. No bobbles. Come on. This young horse really pays attention. I like that. Licking his lips. He knows what's going on. I'm going to go catch him now. Come on, Charlie. So we've traveled this colt, we've looked him over, we've checked his legs, we've checked his conformation, we've looked at his mouth, his eyes. He's a nice package of a young horse. So at this point, if he meets the criteria you're looking for, and you want to drop the hammer on the deal, you can have some degree of confidence that you're making a good investment. However, I will always add that anytime you make a major investment like a young horse, have a purchase exam done by a board certified veterinarian just to make sure. So at the end of the day, you got to pick a horse you're going to like going home with. Make sure you're comfortable with them, make sure you're comfortable with their quality and their soundness, and if it takes a purchase exam to give you that extra insurance, then do so. Thank you.